If you were 2-7, you'd be in a bad mood too.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. And he hits the upright again. That's impossible.
Get your mouth shut. Get your mouth shut. Jerk.
The Bears' season's going to end on a double doink.
If worms had machine guns, then birds wouldn't be scared of them.
Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to a Wordhole Media presentation of the Limp Ditkus podcast. I'm Peaks.
I'm Ryan. Welcome to the Limp Ditkus podcast. We are just a couple of Chicago pricks united by our hatred of Michigan football and the Chicago Bears. We are coming to you on a Tuesday night. We've got some Tuesday night football we're going to talk briefly about in a larger context. We have a Lions victory to discuss. Yet SOL is still undefeated. We have the Cowboys inching ever closer to clinching a playoff berth and their division title. We have an embarrassing performance by the Chicago Bears on Monday Night Football to discuss. I have some USFL news to discuss involving my Michigan Panthers. And we have a little bit of college football talk to talk about at the end. So let's go ahead and kick this motherfucker off. Well, we are at halftime. Just I think third quarters are starting for Rams and Seahawks, as well as the football team and Eagles on a Tuesday night here.
Got a scoring update on those?
I haven't looked brief in the last 20 minutes or so, but I did see Matt Stafford throw an interception to another former Lion, Quadri Diggs.
No way.
Which made me smile on both sides, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
you don't say.
The irony, but yeah, we've got Tuesday night football action, which I kind of like. I don't really like the reason why we have it, but we had two Monday night football games, which I really like. They had a 5:00 game here in the Eastern time zone and an 8:15 game. So it's almost like we're getting bonus football because of a pandemic. The COVID-19 has reared its ugly head again with the Omicron variant, leading to postponements and not cancellations in the NFL yet, but we've seen some cancellations and postponements across all of sports. It's kind of strange. We're kind of back to where we were almost 2 years ago, but
yeah,
the NFL soldiers on. So it's weird
because they're tough. They're tough. They're tough. They're tough.
I think this is a little bit different context in that we do have defenses against this virus now. We are vaccinated. Those who choose to be vaccinated can choose to have a booster shot. Before
I just got one last weekend.
Nice. Congrats. I'm getting mine on Friday.
Superpower.
I'm getting mine on Christmas Eve day. It was
Merry Christmas to you.
Yeah. So hopefully I'm not laid up from that all weekend. We'll see.
I had no side effects except for the little sore arm issue. That was it.
I had the sore arm from my Moderna shot, 2 shots back in the spring. I'm getting the Pfizer shot on Friday, so we'll see how that works out. But it's neither here nor there. So my overarching theme, I guess, for this is I love the seemingly bonus football we're getting. We're getting 5 nights of football. It just sucks how it's happening. It seems a little bit unnecessary, and I guess that we have to wait for the science to play this out. And I think the NFL is using an abundance of caution when they're approaching this by postponing games. It feels like they're applying their sensibilities and their rules from 2020 to almost 2022 now, where things are different. Like I mentioned, we have defenses, we have science, we have statistics, we understand the virus much more than we did 2 years ago. We had no idea what the fuck was happening when these original policies were put in place. So I'm wondering if they need to adjust, whether they're going to sideline, if you test positive but have no symptoms, you're immediately sidelined. But if you have the vaccine, if you have 2 negative tests, I believe you can be back on the field. I feel like we need to adjust everything with this Omicron variant, which is far more contagious, but it seems to be less dangerous, especially to those who are vaccinated. So I'm wondering if they can relax these a bit. I think they might have to wait a while until the data really proves those initial findings to be correct or not. So I don't know. What did you think about how the NFL's handling this so far?
I mean, they basically said we're moving it back to where we were. They put in the stricter rulings in place. It was crazy, like going into the weekend. So I think, people were supposed to be wearing masks on the sidelines and all that stuff again. I agree, but I think the problem is there's probably a large number of players who are not vaccinated.
I don't think it's large. I think there is definitely a percentage, but it's a much smaller percentage than the regular population, which is interesting. I don't know. I don't know what the actual numbers are, and I'm not sure that they've actually released all that, or if every team has to.
Yeah,
that's really different on every team. If the percentages are way different, but
I mean, I guess the question comes in, like, what are they really putting at risk, to your point, by for a player who has no symptoms, if he can play? I mean, should he just be allowed to play because of all the stuff we know now?
right.
I mean, the Browns were down 14 players. The Bears were down like 14 players. I think the Browns may have been down more than 14.
They pushed their game back to last night, but they still didn't have Baker Mayfield back or any of the key guys that had COVID. So I'm not really sure why they're postponing those games at that point. Like, if you're just going to soldier through anyway, I mean, maybe they're hoping that they would be okay by then.
I mean,
I also think it's a little bit arbitrary because 2 weeks ago the Lions had 20 guys out. Not all of them are COVID. They had 8 by game day, but how come their game wasn't postponed in Denver? Give them a few more days to get healthy, but that didn't happen. So I don't know. It's a little bit arbitrary how it's being played out, but again, you can't really. They're reacting to unprecedented times, so I can't. As much as I'd love to bash, and the whole world loves to bash Roger Goodell, I'm not sure you can in this case. I guess they're doing the best they can, but
I mean, they haven't really. I mean, nothing's been canceled, so I guess that's when you see these large number of starters out, though, you wonder, like, is this going to lead to cancellation versus pulling these players from these practice squads and they're suddenly making their first NFL starts in the middle of a playoff race. See, that's where it gets all sketchy for me. And today, and I don't know, is this going to affect their decisions on how they do things? Both Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce are tested positive, so there's no way they're playing this weekend.
See, I'm hearing different things. Like Jared Goff from the Lions tested positive yesterday, and all he has to do is test negative twice this week, and he could come right back to practice. But I don't know if that's
twice in more than a 24-hour period.
Yes, correct. So that's why if he tested positive on Monday, so he could come back by Thursday theoretically. He has he said he had mild symptoms, like a mild cold, basically. So I don't know how that plays out. I don't know if that's because he's vaccinated. Maybe Tyreek Hill isn't. I don't know if he has they have different policies for that or how that works. But I'm just saying, I know for a fact Jared Goff could come back this week, so that might be the same scenario for those guys too.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say this. I'm just going to make a judgment call. I'm going to guess, looking at Travis Kelce, he's not vaccinated. But
looking at him, okay.
Just kidding. Yeah. Sort of.
Well, we've probably gone as deep as we need to go on this subject.
I guess you're right. You do have. They do have more than enough opportunity to test twice before Sunday's game. So.
Your point, though, is at least this week it hasn't affected playoff races because they have played all the games, but they literally can't postpone games or cancel games at this point because they all need to be played to figure out the playoff.
But it has affected playoff races because of Cleveland, not because of that's my point was, do they with all this seeding that's left to be decided, and every division is gone, has now collapsed, right?
Yeah.
Especially the NFC. The NFC picture this week is completely different than it was last week. And, is that going to, if more key players are out, and are we going to hear, is it going to be like teams didn't make the playoffs because they didn't have their starters out there for a week or two even? So, I mean, it's affecting it in a different way, not in the fact that they're not playing the games, but they're playing the games with 15 backup players,
Right.
And we'll talk about this later, the Vikings played a bad but shorthanded Bears team too. So that helps their playoff chances. Raiders playoff chances are helped by what happened in Cleveland. So I don't know, but I got to say, COVID aside, something that helped my team's playoffs chances getting the number 1 seed were your Detroit Lions.
Well, yes, thank you for bringing up my Detroit Lions, as they won a game and yet they lost at the same time. Even when the Lions win, SOL is undefeated, is the way I like to put it. As yes, the Lions had a major upset victory, and as much as I mentioned it last week on the show, the only way they could possibly win that game against the then 10-3 Arizona Cardinals, who were undefeated on the road, 7-0 before going into Ford Field. The only way the Lions had a chance to win is if SOL reared its ugly head and found a way to not only screw the Lions out of the number 1 draft pick overall, they would also help pave the way for the Los Angeles Rams to have an easier path towards the Super Bowl. If they could get closer or pull ahead of their rivals, the Arizona Cardinals. And in one game, the Lions accomplished both. They not only moved from the valuable number 1 draft slot to number 2 now, they also hurt their second first round pick that they'll be getting from the LA Rams, and that it made things just a little bit easier for them. So, of course, I should have known as soon as I said it, that's exactly what would happen, because the Lions defeated, they didn't just defeat the Cardinals. They beat the fuck out of them. It was an ass kicking from the get-go.
It was insane.
It looked like literally the opposite scenarios were playing out. The Lions looked like the Cardinals and the Cardinals looked like the Lions. The Cardinals looked totally undisciplined. They had like 4 personal fouls, late hits, blows to the head to the quarterback, just stupid penalties. They dropped a ton of passes. They looked completely confused on offense. They couldn't take advantage of the few turnovers that I think the 1 turnover that the Lions had. The Lions actually gave up a fumble and then intercepted right away and then scored a touchdown in the next play. So it's like those scenarios are exactly what I thought Arizona would do to the Lions, yet the Lions did it to the Cardinals. So amazing. I mean, that's the only explanation I can give is SOL, and it's always undefeated one way or the other. The city of Detroit is split down the middle, I'd say. Half of Lions fans are excited about that win. The other half are pissed off that they just lost the number 1 draft pick on a meaningless game. The other part of this is they kicked ass. They did this exactly 1 week after being mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. So officially being a meaningless game. There's arguments to be made. It is great seeing your beloved team win a game and win in such impressive fashion, win unexpectedly, getting some, national attention. But why couldn't this happen early in the season when it meant something, when they could do something with this? And now all it does is fuck up the draft position. And it's essentially that the two sides of Detroit are the way I'm going to sum it up is it's prioritizing. It's what your priorities are. Do you want short-term gratification in a win, feeling good about a win, or long-term success for the franchise you've devoted your life to? The draft pick is is what they need at this point, the higher draft pick. And we can debate, what the value of the number 1 pick is versus the number 2 pick. There might not be a huge difference, especially in this year's draft, as there is not a Trevor Lawrence or, a generational talent necessarily that stands above the rest. So number 1 and number 2 might be not that big of a difference. But quantifiably, empirically, 1 is better than 2. We can agree on this. And, a lot of Lions fans are upset with people that have my attitude. They say the number 1 pick gets botched so many times. How many number 1 picks actually pan out? And it's like, well, how many number 2 picks pan out? It's not like number 2 is you can't argue that number 2 is better than number 1 in my mind. And I don't see how you can argue that winning this meaningless game is going to set things right for, this is the building block that sets us off to a Super Bowl title eventually. I mean, that is so far down the road. It's so nebulous and so subjective. So that's my objective versus subjective argument that while that was a fun game, the Lions are worse off by winning that game on Sunday. And it's unreal that this is my 40 some year fandom. This is what it boils down to, that I'm pissed off when we actually win games. And that's why this franchise is so frustrating to me. So, I mean, might as well break down the game a little bit, because at least that was fun. Dan Campbell, I've given him shit all year, or not all year. I think I like the guy. His coaching leaves much to be desired. He's famous for going for it on 4th down when risk versus reward is not in the proportions that it should be. That would be in his advantage. But, first drive of the game, they had a 9-minute drive, kind of setting the tone for the game. He didn't go for it on 4th and 3 at the 14.
No, he tried to get them to jump off sides.
Yeah, I thought that was smart. I like that idea, but it was kind of out of character. I mean, he kind of used his aggressive nature, tried to use that against Arizona. So
I do have a question about that, though. I thought he did something questionable, because he took the 5-yard penalty. They didn't take the timeout. They took the 5-yard penalty, pushing the field goal kicker back 5 yards. And we know for certain this year with extra points are missed all the time.
Yeah.
I thought it was a little risky. I get holding on to the timeout, but
I'd have to confirm the yardage, but I think that moved the ball from the 14 to the 19. So that would be what, a 29 plus 7,
29. Yeah.
36-yard field goal. That's still what an extra point is. So you're right. But I think maybe the timeout is more valuable, although it's the first half. So the points are more valuable than a timeout potentially.
I just
first half,
I laugh.
I think
I laugh because of how much we've talked about his oddness on the 4th down, and you're so deep in the zone that it almost seemed worth going for it.
Yeah.
Since your season is over.
I was surprised they didn't. Yeah, exactly. Why not go for it at that point? And the idea at that time is like you were going to have to outscore the strong offensive attack of the Cardinals. So it kind of confused everybody. So, or maybe he's just, maybe he is figuring out when it's worth it and when it's not, or he's still all over the place. I don't know. Yeah, I thought it was a little strange, but I'm not going to bash him for that. He did get all aggressive and went with an onside kick directly after the field goal, which was bizarre. I was not ready for that. They, of course, did not get the onside kick, but the defense got a 3-and-out. So maybe Danimal Cannibal knew something a little more than the rest of us, that his defense was going to step up in a major way in that game, because they essentially allowed only 6 plays for the majority of the first half to the Cardinals, because Lions kept going on major drives and scoring points. So they ended up having a 17-0 halftime lead, which was incredible. Not what I expected, but you're just sort of waiting for the other shoe to fall and waiting for the Lions to piss it away. And they didn't do it. They just kept they kept methodically moving the ball. They behind the running of household name Craig Reynolds. I'm sure you've all heard of Craig Reynolds before last week, or maybe not, considering he was on the Lions practice squad and officially got moved to off the practice squad yesterday, even though he was playing on Sunday. Craig Reynolds had over 100 yards rushing, and I think that speaks to how good our offensive line is. Just consistently, I've talked about it most of the season, how it's coming through, and this is all, right now it's with our third string center. We don't have our Pro Bowl center Frank Ragnow, and when he comes back next year, this could be one of the top offensive lines in football. And that is a really encouraging sign that I bring up like a broken record every week. But that's how you win games. That's how they dominated that game, is they controlled the line of scrimmage. So that was awesome to see. It's almost like they can plug in anybody back there as a running back, and they're gonna gain 5+ yards a carry. So I love seeing that. Jared Goff played a consistent game. He was 21-26 for 216 yards, 3 touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Josh Reynolds, another Reynolds to keep your eye on. They're emerging as solid wide receivers. I wouldn't say number 1 or number 2 receivers, maybe a number 2 and a 3, or a number 2 and a slot receiver, hopefully down the road. There's just a lot of positives to see in that game, other than it just fucks up everything that they were trying to accomplish by getting that number 1 draft pick this year. So the scenarios play out. Of course, the Texans and Jaguars played on Sunday, and Texans won. So they are a half game behind or ahead, one way or whichever way you want to look at it, behind the Lions with the number 3 draft pick. And of course, the Jaguars moved back to number 1 where they were last year. I don't know. I mean, the Jaguars still have the Jets on their schedule, so there's a potential that they could win a game here and put the Lions back in the driver's seat. But I don't. I mean, the confidence and the way the Lions looked, I could see them winning more games down the stretch here. I wouldn't think all of them, but I wouldn't be surprised at this point. And just to hurt their draft pick that much more, there's potential.
Eyeing the number 4 pick.
Yeah, it could go to number 4. It could get worse than that too, which I don't even want to think about at this point. But so again, I mean, that's just the plight of a Lions fan, or this old Lions fan. I've seen this so many times where we start to kick ass at the end of a lost season, and it just fucks up the next season, and it just drives me crazy. I want to love it, and I just can't do it. It's vexing, I guess, is the best word for it. So that is enough talk for the Lions this week. I think we need to talk about a team that is on a more positive winning path, as your Dallas Cowboys took another step closer towards a division championship.
Yeah, another step towards a division championship. And after I denounced the Tigers last week, the last few weeks after
Lions.
The Lions and Tigers and Bears, after I denounced the Lions last week, saying how I fucking hate them, I love them this week.
They fuck with you on the betting
on the
line.
reg. Yeah, they a couple times.
Yeah, they were 12.5 point underdogs and overcame that by over 18 points. So
yeah,
it's a 30.5 point swing on the spread there for the Lions. So yeah.
So I love them this week because they knocked off Arizona, who everyone was ready to, they're the best team in the NFC. So we'll see how that plays out. And then before we get to the Cowboys, then on Sunday night, the New Orleans Saints, in one of the most boring games of the year, beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 9-0.
Yeah, that was a rock fight. That was like a Big Ten game in the mud of November or something, Purdue and Northwestern.
Yes, exactly. And suddenly the Cowboys went from the number 4 seed to the number 2 seed this week. With the possibility of maybe being able to get to that number 1 seed. The only team in their way is Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Same old story for the Cowboys. The offense struggled again, even against the Giants. They they actually had an okay running game going because Pollard was back, and that seemed to be working. But the offensive coordinator is in love with the passing game, and the passing game just still was not clicking. But when your defense is still creating 4+ turnovers a game, it's going to take a lot for your offense to let you lose that game.
Yeah.
Scary things again, though. It was the fourth quarter. They were trying to just like ice it away. Dak fumbled this time versus throwing an interception. And when I've been watching him over the last few weeks, he looks fine physically, but there's something not clicking like it was earlier in the season. His reads, I mean, he looks like he just has trouble reading like a zone defense versus a man-to-man. And it's like he's not seeing linebackers that drop back in coverage. And if they were playing a better team than the Giants, he probably would have had an interception in the first quarter. He basically almost like it looked like he threw the ball to a Giants linebacker who just dropped it, who had just sort of like dropped back midway, sort of sitting out there, exactly like the interception he threw in the fourth quarter the week before. So, I mean, they got to figure out this. They got to figure out this offense. I know I sound like a broken record, but it is the only thing that's really a team that has arguably one of the best receiving cores in all of football is having trouble moving the ball on a consistent basis. And maybe it's time to play Zeke less until this knee gets a little bit better and Pollard into the starting back role, because I think he did outrush Zeke again. Zeke had a nice run for a touchdown in the first quarter, which kind of made me believe, okay, well, this game is going to get ugly in a hurry, but it never did. It was 21-6. So it's fun. I much prefer watching. Right now, I prefer when the defense is on the field. Like I was watching Red Zone on Sunday versus the game because I didn't even think it was going to be much of a contest. And I kept saying to Charlie, "Oh my God, they should go to the Cowboys and the defense is on the field because there's a better chance they're going to score." So Trevon Diggs got another interception, which made him the all-time interceptions leader in Cowboy history.
Wow.
Over Everson Walls, who was an incredible cornerback back in the 80s. He was amazing. I remember watching him throughout the 80s.
Oh, I remember. They were always fucking Cowboys were always on TV, so I always saw Everson Walls.
That's right. That's how you become a Cowboys fan.
Danny White, Randy White.
Yeah, a lot. Ed Too Tall Jones.
Oh, Too Tall.
Yeah, that was the Doomsday defense, and I kind of think it's back. So
nice.
Welcome back, Doomsday defense. But let's get the offense going. And what I said to some other Cowboys fans this week, during our rally together, our meeting, our annual weekly Cowboys meeting.
Southside Chicago Cowboys meeting.
Yeah, during our weekly meeting. No, but some fellow fans I do talk to from time to time, I said, this week is going to be interesting because they're back at home, and they're one of those teams like when New Orleans was in their prime with Drew Brees. Yeah. They were a completely different team at home than they were on the road, and you didn't want to. If you got the Saints on the road, you had a chance of beating them. But once you got that offense on that turf and you were indoors and in a controlled environment, unstoppable. So. It's at home where they've averaged 40 points on offense a game. So they've been away for 2 weeks. So let's see what happens this weekend against football team. Interestingly enough, because of the extra game this year, the Cowboys haven't officially clinched the division yet. With a 3.5 game lead over football team and the Eagles tonight.
Who are playing as we speak.
With the Eagles leading football team 17-10 right now. The funny part is which I could see this happening with the way this weekend has gone in the NFL, and this whole season has been the last few weeks. If they tie, they win the division. So there is a chance tonight the Cowboys can clinch the division if football team and the Eagles draw
Wow.
after a regular period and overtime. So
We have seen stranger things this season.
I mean, it
so.
was tied 10-10 at half. So anything can still happen.
Wow.
They're not very good teams. So
Well, get ready to pop the
see.
champagne tonight.
I may have that bourbon bottle just sitting
Nice.
next to me to have a sip, a victory sip, a clinching sip. However, if they do beat the football team on Sunday, they do clinch. So
Okay.
it kind of seems inevitable at this point, but
Yeah, in such a terrible division, the NFC least, as we like to call them. Yeah, I mean, your offensive issues, it seems like you have time to work those out, especially if you clinch the division, you're working for playoff seeds, I guess, at that point. But the rest of the NFC, like you mentioned, has kind of gotten out of your way. So I think you're in a perfect position. Even if your offense is struggling, you've got time to work those things out before the playoffs actually start.
well, we do have one big game on the schedule left. We got Arizona. So we do have our own.
That's a W. Just
yeah, I mean the Lions
big
beat
deal.
them. I mean, yeah, big deal.
Lions fucked them up.
I mean, I can't really
Whoop-de-doo.
believe with the Cardinals that DeAndre Hopkins not being in the lineup has affected their offense that much.
12
But
points.
maybe it has.
All they could muster.
There was I don't want to go back to that game, but I should have mentioned
do.
this that one interest. Did you watch the whole thing, right? That play.
I did take a walk in the fourth quarter because the only thing that could happen is they could collapse. So I just was keep getting updates.
I think this did happen. It was either late in the third or in the fourth when they had Murray, I thought, dead to rights. He had run backwards like 20 yards. And then he threw that ball like 30 yards down the field and got a first down somehow. I was like, how the hell did that happen? And it wasn't like there was bad coverage either. It was just like he still put the ball on the money. And I was
the
just
magic
like,
of Kyler Murray. That's
I was
been doing
just
a lot
like,
this year.
I thought for sure, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to get like a 20+ yard loss on this play.
Yeah.
And he throws a rocket.
I'm pretty sure the Lions stuffed them three plays after that. So
yeah, they didn't do anything after that.
Yeah, that's kind of another amazing moment in Lions history.
So thank you, Lions. Thank you, Saints. And now we just need someone. I just need someone to beat the Packers. So
yeah, well, it won't be the Bears. I don't even know if they still play the Bears.
I don't think it would be the Vikings either after last night's game.
Yeah, Monday Night Football there was a bonus game, which is probably merciful because that was fun to watch before the Bears embarrassed themselves and the Vikings. That was an awful game. Monday Night Football at 8:15 local time. Or no, 8:15 Eastern time. I haven't watched a Bears game in a while, and I'm surprised they keep giving them a national spotlight, considering how shitty they are.
I can't believe that game was on Monday night. They didn't move it.
They joined the Lions as the second team to be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Yet people keep watching that team for whatever reason. They put them on TV and they run that goddamn air raid siren for every offensive play for the other team. And it is so fucking annoying. I can't imagine what it sounds like in the stadium. It's terrible for TV. The funniest thing is, the Bears would turn the ball over and then the first thing they would start playing the air raid siren because the other team has the ball because they play it on first, second, third, and fourth down, whatever they have to do. They keep playing that fucking thing. But so they'd fire up the crowd immediately after a turnover, like fumbling or muffing a punt. That's the only part that I found amusing. The other part I find amusing is I haven't seen Matt Nagy in a while because I do my best not to watch the Bears, but we're in mid to late December, and he's still the bald guy wearing a fucking visor. And I've said this for years. Never trust a bald man wearing a visor. Bald men like me wear baseball caps if they're going to wear a hat or a stocking cap in December. What the point of a visor on a bald man is, I have no idea. First of all, you get the sunburn, you get the weird tan lines on your head with the stripe around covered up by the visor. But then in inclement weather, you're fucking freezing. So that should have been a sign unto all Bears fans that this guy is a fool, and I think it's playing out as we saw the Bears get beat 17-3. Just, Justin Fields is supposed to be the savior. He's still fumbling the ball at an alarming rate. You mentioned they had COVID issues, but there was not much happening with that offense. And again, I don't know how Matt Nagy still has a job. They are definitely waiting until the season is over, apparently, to actually fire him. But, even Brian Greasy at the end of the broadcast basically was calling for his firing, saying that Chicago deserves better than what Matt Nagy is providing, which I thought was kind of a shocking statement. He kind of walked it back a little bit right after in the broadcast, but I mean, he was as caustic as you and I have been about Matt Nagy at one point. I may have gotten a bit carried away, but that's just the state of affairs for the Bears. I don't know if you watch. I don't think you watched that game at all.
No, I have a hard time not watching a football game. I do. I really do. And I just put a stake in the ground and said, this game does not deserve a minute of my time.
Wow.
I don't think the Vikings are a very good team. In fact, despite probably having overall better records in the NFC North, I don't think the NFC North is anything better than the NFC East is either. I think you each have similar. They have one good team, the Packers, and the Cowboys are the one good team in the East. So
that's a good analogy.
It's like watching any of these other games, you might get something that what you want is you're hoping that it's a shootout or something. So it's entertaining and there's lots of scoring, but this game was just terrible. And Kirk Cousins continues to show he's talk about a phrase we use a lot on our other podcast that was originally used at the White Sox by their GM, but you talk about mirror to mediocrity. This guy is mediocrity at its finest. He has like 3 really good, outstanding games per season. Yeah. And then everything else is just like really bad decision-making. And I know everyone's saying Jefferson fell down on that one interception in the game where it looked like he just basically threw to the Bears defense because there was no one standing around. Yeah. Actually, in replay, he was pushed over. And I know it's all timing, these patterns and things like that. But where he was looking and where he stepped up and the point he threw the ball, Jefferson was on the ground. Like you had to be able to notice he wasn't going to be there, and he still chose to throw the ball. So, like, I know a Vikings fan who went to the game, and they said they were embarrassed to be a Vikings fan because when you play a team that's as bad as the Bears to begin with, and then you take 14 starters off their roster. Yeah, I mean, it should be a blowout.
17-3 is not what you're looking for.
No. Pathetic on both sides of the ball from the highlights I saw. Out of respect to this podcast, I did look at the highlights.
Thank you for your respect.
Yes. Respect. Ooh. Speaking of respect, I'm going to respect everyone this week and not do an upset special because the NFL is in such turmoil. I cannot figure anything out. Everything is up in the air.
I think it's specifically the Lions have turned your mind into a pretzel as they continue to cover the spread in amazing fashion. They are 9-5 against the spread now.
Well,
I said before, this time they were a 12.5 point underdog and they won by 18, which is
I've officially circled the last game, the last Sunday of the season on my calendar because the Lions, as you mentioned, are playing the Packers at home. Oh, God. That could be the Cowboys' path to the number 1 seed right there. Will the Lions aid the Cowboys? Will it basically be the Cowboys win out and have made it to the number 1 seed courtesy of winning out with the Lions' help?
It depends on how SOL decides it can fuck us as dramatically as possible, whether it's moving the Lions from the number 2 pick to the number 5 or 6 pick with a victory, or however that's going to play out. Whatever it's going to do, it's going to fuck one of us. I guarantee SOL will rear its ugly head somehow in that game.
SOL!
Well, with that, unless you have any other NFL thoughts for the week, I think we should go ahead and take a break here, right here on the Wordhole Media Network.
Wordhole Media.
Major League A-Holes in the Hole podcast, where baseball opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, and most of them stink. Find us at MajorLeagueAholes.com and anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Word Hole Media.
Well, I would like to welcome everyone to the Michigan Panther Cast portion of the show tonight, as I have officially launched a Twitter page for these different sections we break out, this specifically for the Michigan Panther Cast. It is at USFL Panther Cast. You can find that on Twitter. Getting a little following there, which I appreciate. So thank you all for your follows, and hope to have some USFL news hopefully every week. Might pick up as the weeks go on, as rosters are announced and coaching staffs are assembled. We do have major USFL news to talk about this week, as the the USFL owned by Fox has actually sold some television rights to NBC, which means NBC is paying Fox to help this league get off the ground, which is kind of an amazing thing that competitors are in cahoots on this thing, which lends to my idea that this business plan has some serious credibility and has a serious potential to actually work, as opposed to a lot of the smaller ancillary leagues we've seen come and go over the last few years. I pointed out the USFL is owned by Fox. They have a vested interest in making this work and making this work on television. Now that you have another television partner who is paying Fox for this, the privilege of showing USFL games, that is more money, helping this league to get off the ground. And those are major players when you have NBC and Fox showing a total of 43 games. That is the full schedule. 20 of those games will be either on the broadcast Fox channel or NBC. There will be 19 games split between Fox Sports 1 and the USA Network. And that might sound strange off the top. USA is typically not a sports network, but that is what NBC Sports, as we've known it for the last 5 to 10 years, they are actually getting rid of that in completely and moving all their sports coverage over to USA, including NASCAR and all their other sports coverage. So it sounded strange at first, like, why are they showing the USFL and USA? But that's literally the cable wing of NBC Sports. There will be 4 games on Peacock, streamed on Peacock, which you experienced a little bit with your Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I think it was one game out of your season this year.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people have Peacock and might not even know it. If you're a Comcast subscriber, you have Peacock. That's part of your subscription. If you have an Apple TV, or you can stream it on your phone or iPads or whatever. I was a little bit worried when I heard that it was going to be a lot of games on Peacock. I was concerned it was going to be too many, and that would be a detriment. But it's only 4, so 10% of all the games. But the vast majority are going to be on over-the-air broadcast and cable TV. Very easy for everyone to get, major channels. So I thought that was an extremely positive sign by the USFL, and just another reason to think this. At least the idea of this is going to work, and there's a lot of money behind it. We've seen other smaller leagues come and go. Like the one I think of is the AAF, I believe it was called. They were here a couple years ago, but they were literally paying to be broadcast on TV. They actually were kind of like an infomercial almost. They had to pay to get on TV, and they were famous for not being able to pay their players after like the second week of games. They couldn't make payroll. So that's a radically different model that has nothing to do with how the USFL is approaching things. And another reason why I think it has potential to succeed. So yeah, I'm going to try to make you a USFL fan by the end of this. I don't know if you're going to be a Michigan Panthers fan necessarily over there, but
Are they the closest team to Chicago? Maybe
they are. Yeah, I talked about that a little bit last week. Geography wise, the only close team to Michigan in the Northern Division is the Pittsburgh Maulers. They're about a 4.5 hour drive east, but that's further away from Chicago. So
Is it MAU or MALL? Like, do they shop at the mall,
I don't know.
or do
I
they
hate those
hurt
guys
people?
already.
Do they hurt people?
They are barely leading the Panthers in Twitter followers. So that's the theme of last week's show is that they were going to become our instant arch rivals because we had the two highest Twitter followers.
Whoa, maybe it'll be a Twitter bowl.
We were also close.
Twitter trophy.
Yeah. So I don't know how they spell it. No, it's with a U for sure, but fuck those guys.
Fuck those guys.
If we don't have a rivalry yet, I'm going to try and start that here. But the other thing I wanted to bring up about the USFL is I just happened to be in the mood for watching documentaries this weekend, and I forgot to that I had seen a really good one many years ago now, but it was from ESPN. You remember the old 30 for 30s that they used to do? And I think they still do occasionally, or maybe it's under a different name now that it's no longer 30 movies celebrating the 30th anniversary of ESPN, because we're like 45 years into that now. But I always thought those were incredible. I own like the first season on DVD. Unfortunately, I don't have a DVD player anymore. So it popped into my mind that there was a USFL documentary that they had done back in 2009. And so I looked that one up and got that on Amazon Prime. It's called Small Potatoes: Who Killed the USFL? And that's kind of obviously a negative connotation that the documentarian went into it with. But it was a really good documentary about how the USFL formed and what an innovative league it was and how it had potential to succeed. And then it was summarily destroyed by blind ambition, cockeyed optimism, and pretty much greed and impatience. And specifically, they, of course, blame then New Jersey Generals owner Donald Trump, who you may or may not have heard of.
He's the guy. He was in Home Alone 2, right? In the hotel.
When you say that name, that is a charged discussion immediately. But you need to remember this documentary was debuted in 2009, so it's probably made in 2007 or 2008, which would be close to a decade before he became our president. So this was not
that guy.
This was not a politically motivated documentary in any way, but they certainly placed the lion's share of the blame at the foot of Donald Trump for the demise of the USFL. So, yeah, I mean, nobody likes to talk. Well, at least I don't like to talk politics. If you don't like the politics, don't worry about watching this documentary. It's not about that. You do see trademark characteristics of our former president. He is interviewed extensively in this directly by the documentarian, and that is actually where the title of this documentary came from, is what Donald was describing the USFL playing in the spring was small potatoes. And the only way to be big potatoes, I guess, was, in his mind at least, was to move to the fall and take on the NFL directly, which is exactly why they failed. The USFL had gained a lot of traction in their first 2 years, mainly through star power. They had the 3 Heisman Trophy winners drafted in a row and signed to large contracts. They had Herschel Walker, for instance. They had Reggie White, Steve Young, Doug Flutie. So they had household names in that league to start off with, and that's part of their success. They were also, an innovative league. Before the NFL had instant replay review and even 2-point conversions, that's what the USFL was experimenting with in their league. They could do things like that. They even had the red challenge flag that the USFL or the NFL ripped off. So it's just interesting. I didn't even realize those. I forgot about those, at least those little factoids that the USFL was innovative in that. But it was just a colorful league, and it was fun. But the real reason it really took off is because of that star power. And they spent a lot of money. Herschel Walker, I think, had a $4 million a year contract, which was higher than any NFL player at the time. So they were spending major money. I'm not sure that this current USFL is going to be approaching anything like that, or if that's their strategy. And I I just don't see how that works that way. I don't see, any Heisman candidate, any of the top draft picks for the NFL this year. I don't think any of them are going to jump ship for the USFL that is starting in April of 2015 or 2022. So it's just different. But this comes back to the business model that I think is solid, at least for sustained growth, where it won't be maybe the meteoric rise and fall that the original USFL had. It'll be a little more a slow burn to build some credibility and to build an audience. They've got me. I am a late 40s. I'm late 40s man. I was a huge fan as a kid of the Michigan Panthers. They have been on my mind periodically throughout time, mainly because the Lions have been so piss poor for most of my life. And you think back to the one professional football franchise that was successful right off the bat. Well, they have a built-in audience there, but the key is to get the younger generation to be interested. And the coming and going of all these smaller leagues that have flopped basically is a little bit worrying. And it might be tiresome to a new generation or someone like you that has no real interest in the USFL off the bat. I think it'll be interesting to see, but they've built this where they have this multi-year contract with NBC. This is not a 1-year deal. They are committed for, I believe it's 3 years. And the Sports Business Journal said it was a significant amount of money. That's how they qualified it as. So I think that idea is consistent with building this league over time, where they don't come and go so quickly. They're not going to make splashy deals necessarily right away and try to gain an audience with big name players right out of college. We'll see how that plays out, but I think with a long-term runway to get this off the ground, I think they have a huge opportunity for success, and I can't wait. If you can't tell, like I said, I started a fucking Twitter page for this, and there's got quite a few followers already in less than a week. So basically started that on Saturday or this weekend at some point, and we're up to like close to 80 followers on that, which is not bad. There's a built-in audience. They just need to find a way to grow that audience, I think. So we'll see. But that is it for this week's installment of the Michigan Panther Cast.
Well, I'm gonna prolong it a little more.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So when do we start to hear about rosters?
That I don't know. They're pretty. They don't need to. I mean, there isn't a date they need to set necessarily, but it's got to be soon. I mean, they're kicking off April 15th. So,
I mean, like, is someone like, there's probably going to be some names that are going to pop up. Like one player that jumps out at me right away who's tried to get back in the NFL is Des Bryant. Like, is Des Bryant going to be on a USFL team?
Colin Kaepernick?
Colin
that's interesting.
Kaepernick. Can Calvin Johnson go and play in the USFL if he wants?
I don't think he wants to play football anymore, but he could, I guess.
I mean,
yeah, that would be interesting. Getting some older players, maybe they could be a mix of those that have been shunned from the National Football League and players that are unsigned players. I'm not sure how that's going to play out. I mean, the main way, again, how the original USFL worked is they literally paid to get the best players out of college, and I don't see that happening. There's no reason why that can't happen necessarily, but I'd be surprised if any of the top NFL potential draft picks somehow signed with a USFL team, which, I mean, it'd be history repeating itself, 40 years later. It would be great to see. It'd be hilarious. It'd be, immediate competition to the NFL, which I think would be really interesting. I'm not sure that's a smart business model to spend a bunch of money up front before they get established, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're gonna have to. I think it's a few. Like you name 4, and I'm not saying they have to, spend. Necessarily means a big spending or anything like that. Like overspending, maybe is a better way to put it. But like they're gonna get. I just have this feeling they're going to draw somebody out, some people out, and maybe it is, or maybe it's even like the guys like the Andy Daltons of the world and people like that who will look better, fringe guys if you get fringe NFL guys and the league is mixed of like 20% fringe NFL guys and then maybe like 80% everything else, those fringe NFL guys are going to be stars in that league,
Well,
theoretically.
and that's why the alternative spring league works as well, because those players are in the middle of their off season where they might, if they're trying to make a name for themselves or get back in the NFL, maybe they can sign a 1 year, the 3-month contract, 2-month contract with the USFL and do that and boost their QR rate, their QA rating, and see how that pans out. I'm not sure how that's going to play out, but that's another fascinating aspect of how that could work. So,
I mean, as much as like, I'm kind of like whatever with this right now.
Yeah,
I'm very
clearly.
interested. Well, no, but I'm very interested.
No, with good reason. I understand.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a
that's most of the world. So I get that. If there was
like a Chicago team, I'd be way more interested in it. But
that's why I'm surprised there isn't one. That's why I thought that may have been one of the teams, because they literally just picked whatever the biggest brands were remaining from the original USFL league, because they're all playing in Birmingham, Alabama. There are no local owners. There are no local stadiums yet. So they just picked big brands essentially. There might be more to that, as they probably have put out feelers for individual ownership and stadiums, stadium situations, because eventually they will move to those markets if they want to be successful. They can't play all their games in Birmingham for forever. So yeah, I could see how you'd be more interested in I think it was the Chicago Blitz. It was the
Blitz.
Were you a Blitz fan by chance?
I did watch the Blitz a bit. Back, I did watch the USFL like a little bit, but like I wasn't. So I'm most interested to see what these rosters look like, and then that will help me decide my vested interest in time of year when I am budding and floating on air because of the start of the baseball season. So
potential.
Well, I was going to say they may have picked a really good year to launch the USFL, because.
Yeah, I think that could be a huge factor. In fact, I mean, if baseball fucks this up like you and I think they might, as we've talked many times on our baseball podcast, Major League A-holes, if there is a delay even to the season, that is exactly when the USFL season is supposed to start. So for a sports starved nation, if the USFL could fill that void immediately, which I think would be, that could be the most serendipitous thing for this league that's ever happened. So I'm certainly not wishing the Major League Baseball to have a work stoppage into the season, but if that was going to happen, that would be one positive out of it, I guess. Well, I think we can move on from professional football and all its formats into college football for the week. We are in the middle of bowl season, whether you know it or not. There's been a ton of bowl games played, but I don't think I've watched a single one because I don't care about any of the teams.
No. Oof. This is bad. These are bad bowl games.
This is bad bowl season.
I don't know. Speaking of bad bowl games, let's bring up dads for a second, and both of our not to bring a dim light to this podcast, but both of our dads are deceased. But question for you, Smitty: did your dad my dad would watch every bowl game, even the bad ones that were early on? Did your dad get into it that deep?
He did not. I used to, though.
Did you really? Okay.
Yeah. Well, there are also far fewer. There's still a lot of bowl games, but there are far fewer than there are now. So I think even the quality back then, I remember watching bowl games certainly between Christmas and New Year's. I remember it was kind of a novel idea that there'd be bowl games before Christmas.
There were a few. There were always.
Well, now there's a ton, and so that's part of it. The dilution of just if you win 6 games, you're in a bowl. That's what's ruined it essentially. So,
I guess the $1 million question in regards to bowl games: have you ever sat through I may get this bowl game wrong. It's called the red and blue game, where it's
Are you talking about All-Star game?
Yeah, it's like the All-Star game, but it does
they
happen
do the
with it.
East-West Shrine game.
Oh, that's
is one.
It's the one where once you get up by 2 touchdowns, then the other team, if they score, they get the ball back again. And
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it is one of the most bizarre and annoying football games
That's
you
a
can ever watch.
That's a little different than the bowl season, because that's essentially a showcase for players going to the
But
NFL.
it still takes place like right around the same time, though. It's really weird.
See, I thought it was in January, but I could be wrong. The one I'm thinking of, I liked a ton, and this is the graphic designer side of me, is those players. It'd be postseason, it'd be after their season, after their bowl games. They would all bring, they'd spend like a week at camp. Like essentially they would be at wherever the East-West Shrine game was. It was at a university. They would all stay in the dorms, and they'd be friends with all these other, seniors across the nation. They would exchange helmet stickers. So you'd see crazy helmet schemes where you'd see like a Spartan logo on a U of M player's helmet or something. You could exchange stickers, which I thought was so cool, because it kind of reminded me like the bottom of my skateboard, just adding stickers to everything and that. So that's the main thing I remember from those games. There's like the Senior Bowl. That's another one of those kind of showcase all-star games where lots of NFL scouts go to. It's not, not a university versus another university in a meaningless bowl game. It's actually a scouting opportunity. So those are the ones I remember. But I watched all that shit when I was a kid, but I think I also had more spare time, and I do think the proliferation of the number of games has really hurt bowl season in general. So another thing that has hurt in a weird way, that I think has hurt the whole spectrum of bowls is honestly the college football playoff. And I think I'll explain how. It's a little convoluted, but I think you see players not being interested in playing in a regular bowl game anymore. If their team does not make the college football playoff, you're seeing more and more players opt out of playing in their bowl game. And we learned that this week, specifically with my Michigan State Spartans as their best player. And my vote for Heisman Trophy winner, Kenneth Walker III, is opted out of the Peach Bowl. And to compound things, Kenny Pickett, quarterback from Pitt, their opponent in the Peach Bowl, who did go to New York as a Heisman hopeful, he is also opted out. So two of the main reasons to watch the Peach Bowl this year are now gone. And I wonder if either of those guys would have opted out if somehow their teams would have made the college football playoff.
Or no.
Yeah. Or if here's where that becomes an interesting question. What if Michigan State had made the Fiesta Bowl, as I was hoping, and I'm sure many were hoping it, which feels like a more prestigious bowl than the Peach Bowl? I could be wrong on that. That's just my feelings, at least. But the opponent in Pitt is not, not a blue blood program necessarily. They were great in the 80s, 70s, and 80s with Tony Dorsett and Dan Marino, but they're not a traditional powerhouse. If we had gotten the matchup that the Limp Ditka's podcast wanted, the Limpy Bowl, whatever we would have called it, with Michigan State versus Notre Dame, there's no way Kenny Walker would have backed out of the Fiesta Bowl, I don't think. So that's another issue with the proliferation of bowl games, but specifically how the college football playoff has affected that. I do not begrudge Kenny Walker III for opting out, or Kenny Pickett. I like to give Kenny Pickett some shit because I think he should not have gone to New York ahead of KW3. But I don't begrudge those guys making that decision at all, as they are definitely going to the NFL. They're entering the NFL draft, playing in the Peach Bowl, where it would be admirable and honorable to finish their seasons with their teammates. It is a terrible business decision to do that, to put their bodies on the line when their bodies are how they are going to make their potentially generational wealth by being drafted into the NFL. So it bums me out and it sucks because I was looking for reasons to really get fired up for the Peach Bowl after being disappointed by not getting into the Fiesta Bowl, or especially not the college football playoff. I have even less reason to be fired up about the Peach Bowl. So you're not running into that, I don't think, with your Fighting Irish, as I haven't heard about anyone opting out of the Fiesta Bowl. Did you have?
No, I haven't heard at all about anyone, opting out. I think everyone's in for the game. I think part of the reason they're in for the game is because they're excited about their new head coach.
Yeah.
But it's Freeman. Freeman had that tall task ahead of him, with early signing day, and we talked about last week how he went out on the road for a week straight and made it to 18 of the 21 possible signees, and it turned out they got all 21. So
I think he was in a really good position because he had already established recruiting relationships with those guys. So he wasn't coming in out of the blue.
No, not definitely for the defensive players. He had already, and they got the whole linebacker class, which word on the street is, they got some SEC type of players. In fact, one of the guys, Jalen Sneed, is a 5-star linebacker out of South Carolina, which is crazy that they were able to get him out of the grasp of Nick Saban or the Georgia, or even interestingly enough, North Carolina was in one of the rankings. And saw they were the recruiting class right behind Notre Dame.
Yeah,
I saw Notre Dame coming in like at 7 in the Bleacher Report is the one I'm referring to, and Tar Heels came in at 8. And
I've seen different ones where Notre Dame was number 7 in the one I saw, but they had Michigan at number 8. We're behind, so
yeah, Michigan's at 9 in this one. But,
okay, so it's pretty consistent.
Yeah, it's pretty consistent, but it's that's big news. I was a little concerned. I mean, Freeman's reputation from within the organization was obviously very high. Notre Dame didn't really hesitate all that much. The players backed him 100%. So I don't know. Maybe that went a long way too. I mean, I understand them getting all the defensive recruits because obviously he was part of that. But I mean, maybe he was. Maybe I'm just ignorant in this situation. Maybe he was also just there as a recruiter because one of his assets is he is a very good recruiter. So maybe he was in on part of the offensive conversations too.
In the little I've seen, he is a charismatic motherfucker. So I could see how it would play well and in recruiting.
Yeah. So that was really great to see. It was also great to see that LSU was way back in the teens. All the dancing and all the talking. Not that didn't make anyone. In fact, and I had notes, and it's like my notes didn't update this week, but I'd been tracking it. There was a series of movements out of LSU where a lot of players, I want to say around 5, maybe, well, I'll say 3 to 5, and not to be, I know at least 3, but I thought it was as many as 5. I was making a running list. Have left.
Wow.
So things aren't all rosy down there for that Southern gentleman, Brian Kelly. So we'll see how his first year pans out there.
You said they were in the mid-teens. You thought? I forgot to look them up when I saw.
Yeah, they were towards the back of the pack. Let's see, I can get that for you right here. And this is Bleacher Report. I saw they were. So they had the Spartans at 20, Auburn at 18, okay. LSU at 17.
Okay. I was looking at Sports Illustrated. They had, that's the one I mentioned where Notre Dame was number 7. That's been consistent. That's where Michigan was number 8. I didn't see LSU, but I think they probably had it at 16 or 17, just like you saw in the Bleacher Report. And they had Michigan State at 21 in the one I saw. So that's interesting that Bleacher Report had them at number 20. I'm a little disappointed in seeing the Spartans that low, but I wonder, I didn't look it up what they were last year. I have a feeling it's much higher than it would have been before this incredible season. the 10-2 record under Mel Tucker, the bad motherfucker. So maybe that's trending up. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised that they're not in the top 10 in the country, as Michigan State rarely gets that high. Even in their heyday under Mark D'Antonio, they were picking up instead of 4 and 5 star recruits, they're picking up 2 and 3 star recruits and turning them into major college football players. So
Right.
So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I think it's fun for the teams we talk about to at least compare those notes in December in this early signing period, and we'll see how that plays out into next season. Well, that's about all I have for this evening, unless you had any other thoughts.
I don't think I forgot anything.
All right, what's the score on this? I've got the Seattle and Rams game going.
Is that still like it was 10-10 last I saw?
Can't quite see it from where I'm at, but you were definitely watching with bated breath the football team versus the Eagles. See if we can get that tie tonight.
I would just love if it tied. It would just be so perfect.
That'd be awesome.
It would be a perfect way to clinch the NFC East. It really would.
We're all rooting for you.
Oh, Rams are up 20-10, and Eagles are up 27-17 on football team.
Okay. Well, still, there's a path to a tie there. 10 points,
there's still a path to a tie, yes.
Well, I think we can wrap this one up. This is episode 30 of the Limp Ditkas podcast. You can catch us on social media at Limp Ditkas. You can find our merchandise for sale at limpditkas.com. You can catch us on YouTube as well, and you can find this podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So with that, I'm going to call this Dagger Time. We out. Peace.
Peace.